Hey guys, it's me. Habits are super important to just being productive and getting things done, achieving your goals, all of those things. If you listen to my podcast this week, the CEO Mindset podcast, I had a part to a podcast that I did with Allegra and Natasha, and we're talking about habits and just really trying to be productive and plan and get things done in the way that you want to have them done so that you can have the success that you're looking for. And so today I thought on the video I would sort of follow up with the idea of habits, triggers, and rewards. And I wanted to reverse engineer these three things because we always want the reward, right? Who doesn't? We want that big payoff. We want to put forth an amount of effort and receive some sort of a result that makes us happy and that we can be excited about. I think we can all agree on that. But what happens? Why does this go wrong? What is it that we are doing that is preventing us, or not doing that is preventing us from getting where we want to go? We're doing all the right things. We're looking at the videos. We're learning from the experts. We're trying to implement what it is they say, but for whatever reason, things just aren't working. Believe me, I've been there. I've done that. I've got buttons and a t-shirt. And today I want to talk about it. So stick around. You need to be able to understand what you're bringing to the table, the value you're bringing to the table. And that is really important for any success because you've got to be able to stand on a solid foundation, and you are your solid foundation. So I want to start with rewards because that seems to be the shiny thing, the shiny object that we're all looking for. I mean, I've been in business for a very long time and I've been working on content for a very long time. And I can tell you just from my own analytics that the things people are most interested in has nothing to do with the foundation of how they get there, but more so just giving me the key to the kingdom. How can I get this reward that I'm looking for, whatever the reward is? And so let's just start there and just try to identify some rewards that are going to help you get that payoff quickly, that will help you form the habits. So that's why we're reverse engineering. So let's start with the rewards, and then we'll talk about the habits, and then we'll talk about some things that could derail you or triggers that could prevent you from getting there. Maybe if we talk about it in this way, it'll be helpful to you. So the first thing is, like I said, payoff is what we're all looking for. We all want to get that thing, win that prize, feel that good feeling. We want our actions to yield some sort of a result, right? So whatever that result is kind of the thing that we're dangling in front of ourselves to keep us motivated to continue on doing whatever needs to be done in order to realize that dream, realize that vision, right? The thing is, though, we want that reward to be timely. We want it to come when we want it to come. Sometimes we don't want to wait on it. We want it to be we want to do the thing, put forth the effort, and then we want to see immediate results. But why doesn't this happen? Why is this not the case? Well, sometimes it just takes time. It doesn't matter that you want it to happen right away. Sometimes it just takes time. And I always talk to my social media clients about this because they think that when we come in as a marketing agency, we're going to automatically, make things 10 times better for them. And in a lot of instances, things are better, but they're not to the degree that the person or the customer is expecting, because they think we can come in and just overnight wave a magic wand and things are great. But there's steps. There's a method to the madness that makes it happen. And so in order to get to where they want to go, there are certain things that have to be done first. So everything we want is not going to happen lickety split, but it can happen in a timely fashion if we're doing the things that we need to do to realize this particular reward. So the first thing is, the reasons that it doesn't happen is because we have this monkey see, monkey want mentality, the monkey effect, if you will. And here we see other people have things that we want. Other people's business is at a level that we want our business to be. But what we're not really taking into consideration in terms of this reward is that that person has put forth a certain amount of effort. So if we want the same level of reward that we see other people have, we have to put forth the same level of effort in order to get that reward. Sometimes what we want is just not realistic. Maybe that's why you're not getting the payoff. Maybe you're trying to do something and you're just not prepared for that level yet. You're not there yet. That's why I created the Boston in Stages quiz. If you've not taken that quiz, go back. I'll put it in the description below, but take that quiz because it really does share with you the stage of Boston that you might possibly be in and how you can begin to attract, engage, and convert the audience that's within that stage and why. It's a really good tool and it's free. You should just go check it out. My Boston in Stages. I think it's called Stages of Entrepreneurship quiz, but I'll link it below. But maybe you're just not being realistic with the goals that you have or the reward that you want. Maybe that's what's going on. And maybe you just don't have a plan. And that's why you're not seeing it. Maybe that's why things aren't timely. You don't have a plan. We all heard the quote. I've said it 1,000 times. A lady at our chamber, she coins it as her little mantra that we all know of her to be. And it's a goal without a plan is just a wish. And so if we don't have a plan, we're never going to get to the reward that we're looking for. So if you're looking to get a payoff, you haven't seen it lately, maybe it's because you're wanting what someone else has and you're not really planning for what you really can get. Maybe it's because you're not being realistic with your goals, or maybe it's because you just don't have a plan. So I have some suggestions that I thought might help keep you motivated so that you can reach that reward, you can get that reward. So maybe instead of planning for what you see other people having, you can start to maybe adjust your reward around these 3 things. The first one is you attach your reward to a personal growth. That could mean, think about some duplicitous outcome that you could have. Maybe in learning a new skill or learning about something new, learning about a topic that can help your customer base or your family or your corporate life. Maybe in learning these things, you can then take it and have the reward of seeing that desired result of whatever that thing is. But in the meantime, you've also learned something really great. You started off thinking, oh, well, I want to grow in this area. I want to be a better writer. I want to read more books, something along those lines. But in doing that and having that reward of having that knowledge that you can then share or sell in terms of a product or service, in addition to being able to have that monetary gain, the reward from being able to do that, you also have taught yourself something. So you have also gained a little bit of personal growth in the process. So maybe having dual purposes in your reward. Also, maybe it is you want to make it about the collective. That's kind of how I term this. Maybe the reward is something where you have a social engagement outcome. Maybe it's tied to a group that maybe you have a mastermind that you're in, or maybe it's a community that you have joined and you all gather together to come out to have a certain outcome, and the reward is that the group is going to enjoy something together. It's going to be some fun socialization. A lot of network marketing organizations will use this as a way to incentivize people to sell more products. And they will add you to a certain level if you sell so many products or you get so many people into the business. Maybe you get to go on a trip. A lot of organizations will take their affiliates on a big cruise or a trip to a tropical island as the result of a contest of sorts. And so that is the reward that people are working for. And it's about the collective. It's about a group of people, and you're being able to enjoy this reward with other people. Maybe that is what will motivate you to your reward, to do the things and create the action plan to get to their reward. Or maybe it's about making the reward benefit someone else. Maybe you have a nonprofit, or maybe you are connected to a certain nonprofit and you want to do the thing, and the reward is that those involved in that nonprofit are going to benefit and their lives are going to be transformed in a large way because you put forth the effort. And that's the motivation that's going to get you where you want to go, and that is your reward. But these are just some suggestions that can motivate you towards the end result. And your rewards, if you calculate them right, if you determine them correctly, then it motivates you to do the work. And this next step is the habit forming. It will help you in creating those habits that will help you achieve the goal. have to understand what you need to do and be your best altogether anyway. And we talk about that all the time here on how you can be real, how you can be authentic and transparent. So let's move on to the second aspect, which are the habits. And listen, habits are, I've categorized them into 3 different types of habits. But to develop habits that get you closer to what it is you want in your life, career, and or business is really dependent on the types of habits that you already formed and how you adjust, whether it be for the good or for the better or for the worse. It's really about the adjustment process and identifying the habits that you've already sort of formed. And this takes me back to my personal framework. And if you've not seen that, we'll link that below or we'll have it in a card somewhere. But our personal framework is really designed to help us sort of stick within a certain consistency of doing things, a certain way of doing things, a certain way of showing up that is easily done based on your personal framework. And when you operate through that personal framework, what you're doing is you are ensuring that wherever you show up, you are doing your best and you are capable of being your best because you've already set the parameters for that particular set of circumstances to begin with. So when you're talking about habits, the first thing I always suggest is really defining your personal framework. And the best way to do that, I would suggest just getting on the wait list for my Project CEO program because I help you construct your personal framework. And it is really more than just the walls of the framework. There's a lot that goes into identifying all of these things. And so we do that at the very beginning of my program and helping you really develop your personal framework. But in terms of habits, I've got 3 categories here that I want to talk about. One are those unproductive habits. Then you've got destructive habits, and then you have constructive habits. And so those unproductive habits are the ones that they don't really do you any harm, but they don't do you any good. It's really just a waste of your time. You're doing things that are wasting time and preventing you from working the plan that's going to help you receive the reward that you are out to receive or to get. So if you have these, really sit down and identify, like, what are you doing on a daily basis that is just not serving you, that it's not really hurting you, but it's not moving you, it's not moving the needle forward either. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to delete those habits, okay? And they're pretty easy because they're not really holding a purpose in your life. So those are the easiest ones, I think, to get rid of. Next, you've got those destructive habits. And those destructive habits are either preventing you from growth or they are potentially harmful. And you don't want either of those things in your life. But these destructive habits can sometimes be very, very difficult to get rid of. I always talk to my kids about eating habits, right? When you're young, it's easy to fall prey to like fast foods and like sweets and things like that because the metabolism is high, they're very active, so they're small, they don't see a need, their health is great. But the problem is those habits form, and as you get older and those health issues start to come in, it's going to be much more difficult to change those habits that are detrimental to your health because the food is good. Even though it's bad for you, the food is good. Maybe you're an emotional eater like me, and it's just very difficult to change those habits. Well, those habits can be destructive, and they can be harmful to your health. So you want to start thinking of ways to adjust. Here's where that adjustment is necessary. And maybe instead of thinking, this is where mindset is going to come in with your habits. Instead of thinking of how do I get rid of the habit? How do I delete this habit? How do I remove this habit? Instead, think more so of how do I add in those really good habits? How do I make sure that I'm getting those good habits in on a regular basis? And I'll go back to the food analogy that I was talking about, the food example. If instead of thinking about, I can't have any sweets anymore, I can't drink that soda anymore, if instead you say to yourself, well, before I have one soda, I have to have 4 glasses of water. That way you're ensuring that your water intake is where it needs to be. And quite honestly, if you've had 4 glasses of water, the odds of you finishing an entire glass of soda is going to be slim to none unless you're really thirsty. But even still, you will have gotten 4 glasses of water in before you drank the glass of soda. If you say to yourself, I have to make sure that I have 4 or 5 days of high vegetable, low carb, high protein meals, and then on the weekends, I'll allow myself 1 sweet. Then you know that you have done all the good stuff first. You don't have to say that you can't have sweets, but now you're just saying, I have to have these other things first. And you make sure that you get those other things in. So it's all mindset. And that's how you can begin to overcome those destructive habits that are not helpful, or they're hindering your growth, or quite frankly, they're harming you. Then when you get to those constructive habits, these are the habits that result in actual personal growth. They actually help you yield the reward that we just talked about, whatever is motivating you. So these habits that you begin to form are going to help you achieve the big picture, that big reward that's going to make you happy. And again, I gave you some examples early on where maybe you are attaching it to a personal growth, you're attaching it to a group collective growth or social engagement, or you're connecting it to some sort of a nonprofit or something that benefits somewhere else. But here, when you begin to create these constructive habits, you are developing consistency that will always and consistently yield the results that you're looking for. Again, not necessarily in an immediate time frame, but that goes back to the mindset situation where you are thinking in terms of, how is this making me better? How am I including these good things? How am I adding these practices and actions that I know are good? And how in these little increments, it is getting me closer and closer to where it is I want to be. Now, what can derail this process? Outside of creating destructive habits and not getting rid of them and maintaining and continuing to have those unproductive habits, triggers. Triggers are things that really do hurt you. And before I start talking about these triggers, I want you to understand that the best and only way, in my opinion, to overcome some of these things, to overcome these destructive and unproductive habits, to get to the rewards, is to really understand you. And I know you can look at a ton of other people on YouTube giving you great tips on how to achieve your goals, and I believe that a lot of them are doing a great job. However, they're not starting you at the beginning. And I'm here to start you at the beginning. This is where I'm giving you this real talk, real tips, so that you can get real success. Plenty of people are going to give you their action plans, but you need your own action plan. Next week, I want to talk to you about 3 different systems that I think are important, and one of them is a personal operating system. So there's a little hint, so make sure you're watching next week. But these are things that the only way you can form them and you can create them in a way that is going to ensure not only you're productive, but if you have a team, you're developing a culture so that that team is productive and that team is speaking and representing you well when you're not around. But the only way to get those things is to really understand who you are and how you want to show up in your life, career, and or business. That's another reason why I started my Style Stories series, Your Style Story. I started that because there are a lot of fashion vloggers and fashion influencers, and I love them, but they're always talking about like high-end products, luxury goods, they're doing luxury travel, and they're encouraging you to live that lifestyle. And you can. I want that for you as much as I want that for me. But I also know that if you really pay attention, they're doing it very authentically, and they're doing what they can afford, what they like. They're talking about their style, how they got there. And you need to be able to do the same thing wherever you are. You need to be able to understand what you're bringing to the table, the value you're bringing to the table. And that is really important for any success. Because you've got to be able to stand on a solid foundation, and you are your solid foundation. So I always lead people back to Project CEO, which is where I'm teaching you how to be the leader of you, the chief executive officer of you, and how you can then leverage that across all walks of life. That's what that program is about. It's not just for marketing. It's just not for business. It's for anyone who is really interested in standing on solid footing so that they can achieve their goals. They can feel confident in themselves and then apply that confidence to the things that they want to achieve. So now let's get back to these triggers, because triggers can prevent you from achieving your goals. I mean, hands down, they can really derail you. And that's because triggers are based on something that if you don't understand it, you'll never be able to control it and overcome it. And there are instances where you're not going to be able to avoid a trigger, but you should have a game plan to overcome the trigger or to minimize the trigger at best. So again, triggers can prevent your ability to achieve your goals. So to avoid missing out on getting where it is you want to be and having the success that you want to have, it's important for you to not only avoid the triggers, but you got to know what they are. You got to know where they come from. Okay. You got to ask yourself some really tough questions. So here are 3 things that I know when it comes to triggers are going to be helpful to you. Number 1, I just mentioned, this is like a bonus, but you really need to identify where the triggers are coming from. That's something we dive deep into in Project CEO. But after you identify where the triggers come from, you have to acknowledge that they even exist. And you have to be able to release yourself from their origin. And we have a whole process for doing that. But then you need to learn how best to avoid the triggers, the ones that can be avoided. And then you have to have an action plan to manage those triggers, the ones that you can't avoid. Sometimes triggers are people, and they are people that you can't avoid. You know, they're family members that you can't avoid. Okay, so if that's the case, there needs to be an action plan so that you don't find yourself derailed or out of sorts or out of balance because you allowed someone to trigger you in a negative way, which then will be maybe even trigger or evoke these negative or destructive habits that we don't want, again, which would then keep us or prevent us from seeing the reward that we're looking for. All right, guys. If these are issues that you're struggling with, whether it be a habit forming situation, whether it be you don't know how to overcome triggers, you don't know how to identify the triggers, or maybe it's that you struggle to see the rewards that you're actually looking for, you're putting forth a ton of effort, but you're not able to really realize that reward, then please get on the waitlist for Project CEO. Let's dive into this together. I'm going to be sharing my new way for you to access the program. It was asked for and I am delivering, and I think you're going to really, really love it. So make sure you're on the waitlist to hear more about that. Also, look at that entrepreneurship quiz, the boss's stages of entrepreneurship, so that you can identify what stage you need to be working in so that you can start to see some of the rewards that you're looking for instead of maybe feeling like you're missing the boat for whatever reason. Maybe you're in the wrong place. Maybe you're not. Your reward is not attainable. It's not what you should be shooting for in the first place. So let me help you by sharing that quiz with you, giving you those results. Other than that, guys, I really appreciate you for being here this week. I look forward to next week when I continue this on and talk to you about some systems that I think you want to have in your life. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day.